Well, hey everyone, thanks so much for taking some time to join us here on the Theologetics YouTube channel. My name is Jacob, and if you've seen any of the videos that we've been posting over the past couple of weeks, starting with theology, like what is it, and bibliology, what is the Bible, and then moving on to the Trinity most recently, what is that and what does that mean for us? You know that these are some big theological concepts, and while these are really important, there are some things within theology that we don't need to, as I would like to say, we don't need to die on that hill. Today, I want to try and give you an idea of how to determine what hill in theology, in our faith, is worth dying on. But before we get moving into that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and drop subscribe below. If you're not sure what this whole Theologetics thing is about, up in this corner, you'll see a card that says, "What is Theologetics?" That'll tell you more about why we are here. Now, as we dive into this idea of like, what is a hill worth dying on? There's an old phrase that's often tossed around in church circles. You might have seen this on some church's website in the About Us section. In essentials, unity. In non-essentials, liberty. In all things, charity. It sounds simple, but if you've spent any amount of time in or around the church, or just around people as a whole, then you know how complicated this can get. Because what counts as essential? Who gets to decide what's non-essential? And how do we hold our convictions without crucifying one another in the process? Today, that's what I want to help you with. I want to help you think through how to determine for yourself which theological hills are worth dying on, and how to live in grace in the rest of the things. So let's start with that first line. In essentials, unity. Essentials are the foundational truths of the Christian faith. Things that without them, like, it's not Christianity. So think one, the divinity of Christ. You find that in John 1:1, Colossians 2:9, the resurrection, 1 Corinthians 15:14 through 17, salvation by grace through faith, Ephesians 2:8 and 9, and the authority of Scripture, 2 Timothy 3:16 and 17. These are not just ideas we like, they are truths that define the boundaries of the faith. And yes, I would argue that these are hills worth dying on. But even then, there's a difference between dying on the hill and killing others on the hill. Unity around essentials doesn't mean we wage war with those who differ. It means we seek clarity, consistency, and fidelity to the gospel. And we do it with humility. I love what Ephesians 4:3 says. It urges us to make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. Because at the end of the day, truth matters, but so does how we carry the truth. Next, in non-essentials, liberty. This is where most of our disagreements happen. Worship styles, eschatology, the end times, modes of baptism, political alignments. Yeah, we talked about that a few videos back. Even hot button issues that stir deep emotions. Many of them still fall into the category of non-essentials. Not because they don't matter, but because they don't redefine the gospel. Paul says in Romans 14:5. Honestly, the entire chapter, Romans 14, is a go-to spot for you as you determine what is essential and non-essential. But in 14:5, Paul writes, one person esteems one day as better than another, while another esteems all days alike. Each one should be fully convinced in his own mind. So what's his point? That liberty in non-essentials is not license for chaos. It's a call to personal responsibility and mutual respect. Non-essentials, it requires wisdom. They invite us to ask, am I willing to love someone who reads this differently? Am I willing to share the Lord's table with them? 1 Corinthians 8 and 10 go even further, reminding us that liberty must be guided by love, not pride. So liberty in non-essentials doesn't mean apathy. It just means that we recognize the difference between disagreement and division. Because you can still disagree and be friends with someone. And finally, the last line is, in all things, charity. Whether you're defending the deity of Christ or discussing church carpet colors, just do it in love. That's what it means to have charity in all things. 1 Corinthians 13:2 says this beautifully. If I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith, but have not love, I am nothing. Charity doesn't mean silence. It means that truth is never separated from grace, just like Jesus. John 1:14 says he came full of grace and truth. So, this brings us to the question, how do you know what hill is worth dying on? Here's a really helpful framework I have used, especially in conversations with people who I disagree with quite a bit. Number one is gospel proximity. How close is this issue to the heart of the gospel? Galatians 1:8 and 9 shows Paul calling out distortion of the gospel itself. If changing this belief that you're considering alters the good news, it is essential. Number two, biblical clarity. How clearly does Scripture speak on this issue? Deuteronomy 29:29 reminds us that there are revealed things that belong to us and secret things that belong to God. So we must discern this carefully. Number three, historical consensus, taking it one step further from just biblical clarity. How has the global historic church viewed this? Jude 1:3 talks about the faith once for all delivered to the saints. Essentials tend to be widely affirmed across time and culture. And number four, impact on witness and unity. Does dividing over this help or hurt the church's mission, my mission as a disciple? What does it do? John 17:21 says that Jesus prayed we would be one so that the world may believe. And that should weigh heavy in our decisions and how we carry out these conversations. So ultimately, what's the takeaway? We have a framework, we have a little bit of a definition of what these three pieces are, but the takeaway is not every hill is Calvary, and not every disagreement is heresy. There are truths worth defending to the death. There are boundaries that protect the gospel, but there's also room for freedom, nuance, and mutual respect. Because the world doesn't need to see a body of believers that's right. It needs to see a church that's kind. We need to ask ourselves, do we want to make a point or do we want to make a difference? The world needs a church, a body of believers marked by both conviction and compassion. A body of believers in a church that knows when to speak, when to listen, and just when simply to love well. So this goes back to that quote, in essentials, unity, in non-essentials, liberty, and in all things, charity. So let's be that kind of people. Thanks again for joining us here on the Theologetics YouTube channel. I hope that this gives you something to think about. I hope that you wrestle with some of these ideas, just like I'm constantly wrestling with what is important. What is something that I should defend, as we said, to the death, and also trying to avoid waging war while dying on a specific important hill. If this was at all interesting or at all helpful for you, please go ahead and drop a like below. What liking does is it tells the YouTube algorithm that you like this type of content and you want to keep getting it, even if it's not from Theologetics, just something in the line of putting you closer to Jesus. This also tells the algorithm that when people are searching for content like this, no matter what they're going through, they'll suggest this type of video. So I highly encourage you and ask that you would do that. If you want to take your understanding of theology maybe a next step further, I don't have all the answers, but I've done a lot of research and I've done a lot of schoolwork on theology, apologetics, and church history, just to name a few things. And I post those on the theologetics.xyz Substack. That link is going to be the first link in the description. And I would just encourage you to check that out. You know, kick the tires around over there and see some of the posts that we've already shared. Most of that is from academic work that I share in just little bite-sized portions that you can get delivered to your email inbox every Thursday. What we do here on Theologetics and we'll be doing moving forward is on Tuesdays we'll talk about a theology concept, and Fridays, which this video is posting on a Friday, we'll talk a little bit more about the boots on the ground side. We still want to keep the YouTube channel more of the heart knowledge, the things that we can devotionally apply to our lives, while the Theologetics Substack is more academic and head knowledge based. But both of those we want to combine together to help you pursue after God and know Him better day by day. So subscribe to this YouTube channel, like this video, drop any comment about a doctrine or a section of our faith that is a little confusing. You may not know if it's a hill worth dying on or not. I'd love to engage with that as we continue these conversations, and head over to the Theologetics Substack to subscribe. Thanks so much.